The story begins on the Sword Sex Assessment Day. Our protagonist pours all his strength into the measuring device. After a brief moment, the instructor announces that his score is only at the third level of spiritual energy. The disciples below immediately begin mocking him. Some call him useless for being stuck at the third stage, while others whisper that this must be the reason his fiancée dumped him. High above the mountain, several important figures observe the assessment taking place. A blonde woman calls out our boy's name with interest. Another woman chimes in, explaining that his parents are dead and that his remaining family members treat him badly. They believe the only reason he is still in the sect is because his family had nothing else to do with him. Despite his background, the first elder of the Sword Sect comments that someone like him might possess hidden potential. In response, the fourth elder brings up an ancient prophecy, describing how our boy seems to be the only one suitable. However, the third elder, Jin Xiao, expresses her doubts, questioning whether our boy is truly the child of prophecy. The first elder, Bing Yun, responds confidently, saying the ancestors' prophecy can never be wrong, and that they must seize this opportunity. With this in mind, she orders all the elders to prepare a special test, a formation meant to reveal whether the protagonist is truly the chosen one. Suddenly, a massive beam of light descends from the heavens and strikes the assessment platform. The beam is redirected and slams directly into our boy. His body begins absorbing the overwhelming energy. For a moment, his entire life flashes before his eyes. Then he loses consciousness completely. The disciples and the instructor believe he must be dead, because even a master would suffer severe injuries after being struck by such heavenly lightning. Yet, to everyone's shock, our boy does not die. This terrifies both the disciples and the instructor, who flee from the testing area, convinced that our boy has turned into some kind of zombie. Meanwhile, the first elder watches calmly. It is now clear to her that our boy is the child of prophecy, so she declares that she will take him as her direct disciple. The fourth elder, Moli, immediately disagrees, arguing that our boy belongs to the entire sect. Before the two elders can continue arguing, Jin Xiao steps in, insisting that our boy would serve the sect better if she took him as her direct disciple. Now, the three female masters stare at each other, their auras flaring dangerously. Before things can escalate further, the second elder, Shan Wuyan, steps in and stops the fight. She reveals that she also wants our boy as her direct disciple. The masters are on the verge of fighting. Meanwhile, Jin Xiao secretly thinks to herself that this situation will work perfectly in her favor. Her plan is simple: wait for them to fight to exhaustion, then snatch our boy right under their noses. Realizing the situation is about to spiral out of control, Bing Yun proposes a different approach. She suggests that they hide their identities and personally approach our boy to recruit him into their own faction. Unsurprisingly, the other masters agree with the idea. Still, they cannot help but notice the cunning and calculating expression on Bing Yun's face. And just like that, the competition to win our boy's favor officially begins. Later that same day, at the disciple residence, our boy Xiao Nan relaxes in a warm bath. He recalls the instructor telling him that although he was lucky to survive, he was still worthless. At this point, it is revealed that Xiao Nan actually transmigrated into this world. He reflects on his host's memories and concludes that the original owner of this body was a complete loser. On top of that, he explains that Xiao Nan has a broken body. No matter how hard he absorbs spiritual energy to level up, it always disappears. This is the reason he's been constantly stuck at the third level of spiritual energy. The ring he carries does not belong to the original host. It is something he discovered on his own, but it turns out to be completely useless. Just as he considers throwing the ring away, a system window suddenly appears. It flashes a warning, labeling him as a cursed existence and ordering him to leave the cultivation world. Before he can even process what is happening, his spiritual energy begins to decline at a shocking rate. Our boy explodes in pure rage at this outcome. He sits in his room, reflecting on how it now makes sense that he cannot level up because of this curse. Completely defeated, he gives up, wondering what the point of cultivating is if he will only grow weaker. In the middle of his inner monologue, the door to his room suddenly opens. Our boy wonders who could be visiting him at such an hour. Bing Yun steps inside, wearing a cheerful smile that leaves him completely confused. Noticing his expression, she calmly tells him that she plans to use a special technique on him. His brain short-circuits for a moment after hearing this. For a brief second, he even wonders if she might be a fellow disciple from the assessment. Bing Yun then begins activating her technique. She reveals that she has spent many years perfecting this skill, granting her access to the dreams of others. Because of this, she plans to manipulate him through his dreams and make him choose her as his master. Throughout her explanation, our boy can only stare at her in silence. Finally, she unleashes her technique. A purple aura called Lost Dream erupts from her body and flows directly into him. Only then does he realize it is already too late. Bing Yun's technique is a mental attack. However, something unexpected happens. His newly awakened system automatically reverses all mental damage and instead increases his mental strength. This leaves the protagonist stunned, wondering if this is some kind of bug. After all, he is practically getting stronger because of it. Under the influence of his system, the absorption rate increases exponentially, and our boy feels a warm sensation spreading through his body. In his mind, he believes he is about to have a great time with Bing Yun. The feeling is so overwhelming that he even wishes she would be more aggressive. Meanwhile, Bing Yun begins to realize that something is not right. Our boy suddenly takes the initiative and moves closer to her. He has heard of dual cultivation before, but has never tried it, so he feels strangely lucky and continues to approach her. For a brief moment, even the master finds herself unable to resist. However, she quickly regains her senses and slaps our boy, snapping him out of it. She is shocked by how close she came to losing control, and even more alarmed that our boy nearly drained her aura. Moments later, our boy wakes up with a sharp pain in his head. Bing Yun notices that he is finally awake, but she is deeply puzzled. He was able to withstand her lost dream technique and appears completely unaffected. Out of curiosity, she moves closer and inspects his face, only to be shocked when she finds no trace of mental infiltration at all. Suddenly, our boy pushes her and demands to know who she really is. This reaction sparks her interest. She begins by apologizing and explains that she is an inner disciple of the Sword Sect, also revealing that they first met during the assessment test. Still suspicious, our boy asks why a senior sister like her would take interest in an outer disciple like him. His words enrage her, and she knocks some sense into him. The system immediately registers the damage and increases his physical constitution by 3 points. Bing Yun resumes the conversation, now determined to use any means necessary to bring him to her side. However, our boy suddenly interrupts her and suggests that she hit him again. He wears a strange expression, as if he has figured something out. He believes this is the moment he has been waiting for. Desperately, he begs the master to strike him again. When she does not respond, he deliberately provokes her. Unable to tolerate his behavior, she kicks him straight in the face. This time, the system increases his constitution by 5 points. Because of this, our boy makes several unsettling comments. Hearing them, Bing Yun immediately calls him a pervert. Completely misunderstanding the situation, she concludes that our boy is genuinely shameless, while he is secretly thinking of ways to provoke her further and level up. After the strange banter, Bing Yun pulls out a cultivation manual and explains that it contains a powerful technique that spans from the spiritual energy stage to the foundation stage. The contents of the book are meant to help accelerate his cultivation. As our boy scans the pages, she realizes the technique suits him perfectly. He pretends to be fascinated by the manual and offers his own insights, which completely stun her. Excited, the master declares that there is no better time than now. She instructs him to follow the contents of the book while cultivating. Following her instructions, our boy begins absorbing spiritual energy. The system notifies him of his progress, and he thinks to himself that it is not too bad. However, Bing Yun suddenly smacks him for pretending to cultivate in front of her and demands that he follow the book's instructions precisely. When he does, the system immediately shows his cultivation level declining. At that moment, he remembers the curse that causes his level to drop. To make things worse, Bing Yun notices his progress and calmly informs him that she plans on staying all night. This leads our boy to realize one painful truth. Bing Yun is a pure obstacle on his path to cultivation. In the next chapter, Jinxiu appears and knocks on our boy's door. Before he can respond, Bing Yun stops him. She gestures for him to stay quiet, and because of their close contact, the system increases his affinity with the fire element. When there is no response, Jinxiu introduces herself as a direct disciple from the First Elder's faction. Since our boy is stuck at the 3rd stage, she explains that she has come under the First Elder's orders, bringing medicinal pills for him. Bing Yun does not understand why Jinxiu is using her name as an excuse, but she also knows she cannot be seen with the protagonist. With no other choice, she hides inside his closet. Once let inside, Jinxiu comments on his diligence, assuming he is still cultivating even though it is already late at night. This prompts our boy to ask again why she has come to visit, even though she already mentioned it earlier. Meanwhile, Jinshio notices how unusually calm he is. There is no sign of agitation at all, despite a beautiful woman standing in his room at such a late hour. Regardless, she repeats her earlier explanation and pulls out a spiritual condensation pill. At that moment, an image flashes through her mind of our boy becoming her direct disciple. Meanwhile, our boy wonders if his charm is only effective at attracting strange women. Without wasting time, Jinshio offers him the pill and urges him to consume it. Our boy knocks the pill out of her hand. He explains that the pill is poison to him because of his curse. Because of this, he apologizes, feeling both awkward and relieved. To his surprise, Jinshio calmly crushes the fallen pill. Seeing his confused expression, she explains that once a pill touches the ground, it becomes contaminated and dangerous. Our boy's eyes immediately sparkle, and he interprets this as poison. Jinshio misunderstands his reaction, thinking he is worried, and quickly reassures him. She then takes out several more medicinal pills. With a cunning smile, she says she brought many. She adds that she wants to recommend him as an inner disciple of the third elder. Hearing this, our boy suggests that they pause for a moment. Meanwhile, Bingyun silently watches everything from the closet. Grinding her teeth, she quietly complains about Jinshio using such methods to bribe the protagonist. Just then, Jinshio suddenly becomes alert after hearing a suspicious sound. The master stares at him with suspicion as he gives a dumb excuse. Jinshio assumes he must be scared of something. Confident in her strength, she pushes him aside and tells him not to be afraid, assuring him that she can protect him. Just as she is about to open the closet, Xiaonan suddenly shows interest in one of the medicinal pills. He comments that its color has suddenly changed. Jinshio panics and tries to stop him, but our boy has already swallowed it. The moment the pill reaches his dantian, a massive surge of blue energy erupts from his body. The toxic pill he consumed grants him 1,000 points of spiritual energy and 100 points of constitution. As a result, he breaks through to the 4th stage of spiritual energy. This finally confirms his theory. Anything that harms him only makes him stronger. Now, both female masters stare at him in utter shock. Although their opinions differ, they share one identical thought. Neither of them is willing to give him up. Just as they are about to continue plotting how to claim him, their plans are interrupted. A silhouette suddenly appears in front of our boy's room. Jinshio immediately recognizes the figure as the second elder, but she is shocked when our boy casually remarks that there is yet another visitor. This makes her shoot him a suspicious glare. Thinking quickly, she realizes she cannot allow Shan Wuyin to discover her presence. Without hesitation, she hides inside the same closet as Bingyun. Our boy tries to stop her, but she ignores him completely. With no other choice, he steps aside, silently hoping the two of them enjoy each other's company. He then goes out to meet the second elder. Shan Wuyin studies him for a brief moment and quickly notices that his cultivation has increased by an entire level in just one day. At first, Xiaonan assumes she has come to help him cultivate. He politely asks which master sent her to assist him. She corrects him, explaining that she did not come to help, but to inform him about the sect hall assignment. Our boy immediately understands. This is about the allocation of outer disciples to the various halls. The following day, the sect hall assignment begins. The instructor explains that the sword sect is divided into 4 halls: Grassroot Hall, Garland Hall, Jibwa Hall, and finally, Pride Hall. Disciples are assigned to halls based solely on strength. This is measured using a wooden puppet. How long a disciple can survive in combat against it determines their hall placement. In short, the strongest disciples enter the Pride Hall, while the weakest are assigned to the Grassroot Hall. Amidst the crowd of disciples, our boy looks completely exhausted, thinking that because of the female masters, he did not get any sleep. Quan Duo soon spots him in the crowd, recognizing him as the one with the lowest test score during the assessment. Our boy glances at him with a slight frown. He knows Quan Duo is about to advance to the spiritual refinement stage and is considered a genius. However, Quan Duo's insult immediately triggers the system, rewarding our boy with +5 spirit. Because of this, our boy deliberately provokes him, snapping back when Quan Duo responds. Each insult earns him several more spirit points from the system. Now he stands there grinning like a fool. Seeing this, Quan Duo's followers begin whispering among themselves, wondering if something is wrong with his head, since he seems to be genuinely enjoying being insulted. Mei Young appears, visibly annoyed by Quan Duo and his followers' remarks. He declares that within the sect, everyone is equal. The disciples instantly recognize him, as he comes from a prestigious family. Mei Young offers some advice to our boy, which causes the system to deduct the points he just gained. He then puts on an exaggerated act, saying it is a pity our boy is still stuck at the third level of spiritual energy, unlike him, who broke through that level at the age of 7. Our boy can only stare at him blankly as Mei Young continues roasting him. Ironically, Mei Young's words cause the system to restore the points Xiao Nin just lost. Because of this, our boy thanks Mei Young sincerely and even gives him a thumbs up. At this point, everyone is convinced that he has completely lost his mind. Elsewhere, the second elder observes everything from afar. She's impressed by how calmly our boy endures the criticism of the other disciples. She comments that such composure is a sign of greatness. And because of this, she becomes even more determined to make him her direct disciple. Back at the arena, the instructor announces the start of the evaluation. Our boy's name is called first, since he has the lowest cultivation level among all participants. Upon hearing this, Quan Duo and his followers openly mock him. Some say he will not last 10 seconds, while others argue that even 10 seconds is an exaggeration, claiming he will fall in 3. Meanwhile, the second elder watches intently, eager to see his true potential. Our boy makes a first move. His sword strike lands cleanly on the wooden puppet. In response, the puppet launches a powerful straight punch. The blow sends him flying straight out of the testing area. Seeing this, the female master watching from afar sigh in disappointment, blaming his low cultivation. The surrounding disciples immediately burst into laughter and mockery. At that moment, the system notifies him that he has suffered serious damage and rewards him with points in vitality, constitution, and endurance. Seeing the notification, our boy reaches a wicked realization. As long as he doesn't get one shot, he can grow stronger by taking beatings. Because of this, he now sees the wooden puppet as the perfect training tool. The female master watching wears a shocked expression. Because our protagonist walks back toward the testing area, his aura suddenly filled with confidence. With excitement flashing in his eyes, he charges straight at the puppet, eager for the experience points he is about to gain. In the next chapter, our boy engages the wooden puppet in a fierce onslaught. The system continuously flashes red warnings, showing that Xiao Nin is receiving serious damage from the puppet, yet he refuses to back down. The disciples watch in stunned amazement, realizing that he has already lasted far longer than the normal assessment time. Because of this, some of the female disciples are impressed. They whisper among themselves, praising his resilience and even calling him handsome. The instructor is also impressed and believes our boy should become a role model for the other disciples. Midway through the fight, the wooden puppet charges forward with a powerful strike. Xiao Nin struggles to block the attack with his sword. He knows defeating the puppet is impossible, but at the same time, the puppet cannot kill him. The real problem is that his body may not be able to keep up. As expected, his sword finally shatters. Seeing this, Quan Duo assumes the fight is over. He cannot understand why Xiao Nin is going all out for a simple assessment. His followers agree, pointing out the massive difference in cultivation levels between the puppet and our boy. In their eyes, it is already a miracle that he managed to last this long. Xiao Nin hurls his broken sword toward the puppet like a projectile. Using the moment when the puppet blocks the attack, he seizes the opportunity to strike. He launches himself into the air and unleashes a barrage of punches, his fist surrounded by a glowing blue aura. The system immediately notifies him that his endurance has broken through to the 8th grade. However, the puppet counters with a devastating blow, sending him flying once again. At that moment, Xiao Nin realizes that his body has finally reached its limit. As he struggles to stand, he notices that the puppet has stopped moving. At the same time, the system displays his current stats, leaving him impressed by how much he has grown. Suddenly, the wooden puppet drops to its knees. The entire arena freezes in stunned silence. The instructor cannot believe what he is seeing. Xiao Nin has overpowered a puppet far stronger than himself using nothing but sheer willpower. Just then, a strange wooden bird emerges from the puppet. At first, everyone is confused until someone explains that the bird is used to announce the results. The wooden bird lets out a strange cry that ripples throughout the entire arena. This triggers an extraordinary phenomenon. The instructor shouts in disbelief. The lightning of the 4 peaks has appeared, a sign that someone has been acknowledged by all 4 peaks and recognized as a genius. This phenomenon has not appeared in over 500 years. Because of this, our boy is immediately assigned to the special admission class. The special admission class is reserved only for true prodigies, causing the onlookers to start comparing Xiao Nin to Mei Young and Quan Duo. The instructor's impression of our boy changes completely as he rushes forward to help him. Fearing Xiaonan might suffer long-term damage, he releases his aura to assist him. Unfortunately, this causes Xiaonan's spiritual energy to drop straight to zero. Xiaonan nearly explodes in frustration, but he quickly calms himself and stops the instructor. He gives a vague explanation about his unique physique and unusually fast recovery. The instructor is genuinely shocked, and his admiration for Xiaonan grows even deeper. After leaving the testing area, Xiaonan immediately notices a change in the atmosphere. Although the two so-called geniuses look displeased with his results, the rest of the disciples, especially the girls, are filled with admiration. Some even approach him, asking for private tutoring. This makes Xiaonan realize he has gone too far and should keep a low profile. Putting on a serious expression, he claims that his performance was merely a fluke. He theorizes that the puppet's strength is adjusted to the cultivator's level. One of the girls seems to accept this explanation, which brings him some relief. However, others point out the massive phenomenon that clearly marked him as a genius. In response, Xiaonan explains that because of his low cultivation, the sect used him as an example of equality, proving that potential is not determined solely by cultivation level. The instructor knows this explanation is completely made up, but Xiaonan shoots him a meaningful glance. Understanding his intention, the instructor plays along, effectively misleading the rest of the disciples. As a result, the disciples' opinions quickly shift. Some say Xiaonan only knows how to take a beating, while others believe he was just lucky. Xiaonan wears a satisfied expression. Meanwhile, the instructor finds it mysterious that someone so young understands the importance of keeping a low profile. His admiration for Xiaonan continues to grow. Just then, Quan Duo suddenly steps forward and asks Xiaonan to become one of his followers. The sudden proposal leaves Xiaonan momentarily stunned. However, he quickly recovers and prepares a wicked counteroffer. He proposes a bet. If Quan Duo can last longer than him against the wooden puppet, Xiaonan will willingly become his lackey instead. Quan Duo ignores his followers' rants, but anxiety begins to creep in. He clearly remembers that our boy lasted longer than 3 incense sticks against the wooden puppet. Mei Young looks as if he has something to say. Remembering how Mei Young mocked him earlier, our boy casually asks if he also wants to join the bet. Mei Young responds coldly, emphasizing the difference between them, comparing it to the gap between heaven and earth. He adds that our boy lacks ambition. Hearing this, our boy secretly thinks to himself that he has successfully rage-baited him. Since Mei Young is now involved, Quan Duo reluctantly agrees to the bet, putting on a show of false confidence despite his hesitation. Moments later, Quan Duo is brutally defeated by the wooden puppet. Afterward, our boy pokes him with a stick to check if he is still alive, grinning like a fool. He thinks Quan Duo must be foolish to believe he could withstand damage the same way. Even Mei Young, the top prodigy, does not last as long as our boy against the puppet. Hearing the comments from the surrounding disciples, Mei Young grows visibly upset. Because of this, he declares that the assessment proves nothing. To him, only talent truly matters. The rest of the disciples eagerly agree, and our boy is showered with insults, along with experience points from the system. After the assessment ends, the instructor slashes the air with his sword, creating a spatial rift. He instructs everyone to follow him. Inside the space, floating mountains drift through the air. At the center stands a massive golden tree, surrounded by the floating peaks. When our boy casually comments about selling the tree, Quan Duo and Mei Young immediately mock him. Mei Young respectfully addresses the instructor as elder and asks about the history of the tree and its connection to the floating mountains. Pleased with the question, the elder explains that this space is called the Luo Peak. All spiritual energy within the space originates from the golden spiritual tree at its center, which connects to the floating mountains. Each mountain contains cultivation caves. Thinking out loud, our boy remarks that the caves closest to the tree must have the richest spiritual energy. The elder agrees, but reveals that the cave beneath the golden tree has been ownerless for over 500 years. Hearing this, our boy silently prays that he does not get assigned anywhere near the tree. Noticing his worried expression, Quan Duo sneers and tells him not to stress. Such places are reserved for talented disciples, not someone like him. The elder calls for everyone's attention and announces the start of the cave selection. Each disciple must step forward and draw a medallion. When it is our boy's turn, he freezes in shock at what he draws. The instructor immediately understands. The golden tree itself has chosen our boy as its owner. Meanwhile, our boy stares at the golden leaf in his hand, completely fascinated, and asks the instructor for an explanation. When the elder announces that Xiao Nan is now the master of the Golden Tree, the entire group erupts in jealousy. Because of this, our boy believes there must be some mistake. He does not think himself talented enough to receive such recognition. The elder praises his humility, but explains that the Golden Tree has acknowledged him, and its decision cannot be rejected. He tells Xiao Nan not to be discouraged. Turning to the rest of the disciples, the elder announces the sect's regular monthly assessments. He explains that any disciple who fails to meet sect standards within 1 year will be expelled. Hearing this, Quan Duo immediately takes the opportunity to mock our boy, declaring that his fate is already sealed. The announcement makes our boy anxious. He knows that the Golden Tree Cave is practically poison to him, and he must find a way to avoid it. Mei Young, ever perceptive, asks the elder how cultivation will proceed inside their assigned caves. In response, the elder displays a holographic image. He explains that each cultivation cave has its own resources and cultivation manuals. However, he warns that some caves are extremely dangerous and advises the disciples not to risk their lives for uncertain opportunities. Because of this, Xiaonan begins to wonder if such dangers exist within the Golden Tree Cave. With that, the elder instructs everyone to head to their respective caves. The scene shifts to the Golden Tree residence. Our boy lies down lazily, and his actions immediately cause the system to reward him with spiritual energy for doing absolutely nothing. As he relaxes, he reflects on everything that has happened so far. The more he thinks about it, the more it feels as if someone has carefully arranged all of this for him. Suddenly, he senses something and demands to know who is watching him. Elsewhere, the two female masters react in surprise. Jinxiu quietly asks Bingyun whether the crystal is working properly. Bingyun replies that she believes it is not the crystal, but Xiaonan himself. She cannot understand how he sensed them, given his cultivation level. This only makes both of them even more curious about him. Xiaonan slowly relaxed and blamed the strange events of the day for making him feel frightened earlier. After calming down, his attention shifted to the system. The system panel showed that he was currently at the 4th level of spiritual energy. His other attributes had also improved, and he possessed a special affinity with the fire element. Xiaonan reflected on his condition. Although his physical strength had increased greatly over the past 2 days, it was still not enough. The monthly assessment was approaching, and becoming stronger was now a necessity. With this goal in mind, he summoned a talisman and began searching for a secret realm within the Golden Tree Cave. His soul projected into the talisman, and different realms gradually appeared before him. The first realm was a 7-star cave with 18 floors, but it was clearly unsuitable. Another realm soon appeared, the Water and Cloud realm, yet it was also not a good match. Just as doubt began to surface, and it seemed like a dead end had been reached, a new realm emerged. This was the Hidden Realm. It was said to contain countless treasures, but it was filled with lava and violent winds. Prolonged exposure would cause severe damage. Xiaonan became excited at once, realizing that this realm was perfectly suited for him. Without wasting any time, he moved to enter the Hidden Realm immediately. Meanwhile, Bingyun felt exhausted and planned to end the day. At that moment, Jinxiu suddenly pointed at the crystal with a serious expression and said something was wrong. Bingyun hurried over to see what had happened and was shocked to find Xiaonan alone with the 4th elder. Xiaonan felt his heart sink the moment his eyes met Moli's gaze. Thoughts of punishment flashed through his mind, and he anxiously tried to think of an excuse. However, instead of reacting angrily, Moli casually tossed her gourd toward him. He caught it with a puzzled expression as she told him to drink. Her reaction was completely unexpected. After taking a sip, he immediately shouted and complained about the strong taste. Moli watched him closely, looking rather impressed. Without warning, she suddenly said that she liked him and stepped closer. As she observed his appearance, she commented that he looked impressive even while drinking with such an expression. In the very next moment, Xiaonan was sent tumbling to the ground. Heat surged through his body, and he quickly tried to leave, excusing himself by saying that his alcohol tolerance was too low. Before he could get away, Moli suddenly fell onto him, her ample chest pressing against him. She claimed that her head was spinning, leaving Xiaonan panicking as he tried to stop the situation from escalating. Moli then acted cute, saying she felt cold and suggesting that he warm her up. She teased that an opportunity was right in front of him and asked whether he really would not take advantage of it. Seeing his reaction, she felt that the long wait had been worth it. It became clear that she had planned everything and waited all this time just to claim him for herself. Elsewhere, Bingyun and Jinxiu were furious, calling her shameless for using such methods. They believed that Xiaonan would not be able to resist her. To everyone's surprise, Xiaonan calmly handed the gourd back to Molly and told her to drink instead. Molly smiled, clearly not expecting him to show such strong self-control. After sitting down together, Molly noticed his clothes and realized he was a secret disciple. She asked what he was doing in such a remote place. Xiaonan explained that he had been searching for a secret realm but could not find the entrance. Molly was shocked to hear that he intended to enter the hidden realm with such a low cultivation level and warned him of its dangers. When he insisted on going anyway, the female masters were convinced that he had lost his mind. Because of this exchange, Xiaonan suddenly gained a large amount of experience points. He was stunned by the unusually high reward and began to wonder about Molly's true level. Molly then said that she was not willing to send him to his grave. Hearing this, Xiaonan stopped her from leaving. He remarked that the night was still young, causing her face to turn red as she asked what he was planning to do next. Xiaonan's next words made her instantly flustered. However, in the very next second, he did something completely unexpected. Molly was left speechless as Xiaonan stood tall, his eyes burning with determination. He spoke with deep sincerity, expressing his loyalty, love, and unwavering dedication to the sect. His serious declaration made her doubt her ears, and she briefly wondered if he had completely lost his mind. Growing tired of his performance, she casually pointed in a specific direction and told him where the hidden realm could be found. Xiaonan could clearly sense that the master was not lying. Because of this, she playfully patted him on the back and jokingly assured him that his coffin would be prepared in advance. Xiaonan accepted the playful jab without complaint and headed toward the indicated location. As he left, thoughts about the strange senior sister lingered in his mind, and he felt that he would learn more about her sooner or later. Meanwhile, Molly used this chance to quietly attach her gourd to him. A mischievous smile appeared on her face, but Xiaonan remained completely unaware of it. Moments later, Xiaonan arrived at the entrance of the hidden realm. Nearby, a group of warriors were gathered, complaining loudly about the dangers of the place. Without hesitation, he dashed straight into the realm at full speed. The group stared after him in confusion, unable to understand what they had just witnessed. Inside the realm, Xiaonan was met with a harsh and dangerous environment that most cultivators avoided like the plague. To him, however, the scorching heat and violent conditions felt almost soothing, as if his body was receiving a deep massage. The system immediately responded, rewarding him with several experience points. While he was enjoying the moment, other warriors inside the realm noticed him. They wondered if he had completely lost his mind, but his calm and satisfied expression told a different story. What shocked them even more was when he casually mentioned that being struck by lethal flames felt refreshing. Deciding it was best to stay away from him, the group backed off, though a senior sister among them still felt concerned. She called out to Xiaonan and offered him a spirit orb. She explained that the orb could detect poison, and when it turned yellow, it meant the area was heavily saturated with flame poison. Xiaonan expressed his gratitude, but the senior sister took the initiative to activate a buff that temporarily increased his stats. Unexpectedly, due to his curse, the buff turned into a weakening effect instead. Xiaonan briefly considered striking her, but she quickly explained that the buff was temporary. She urged him to move along, saying she did not want to see his face inside a coffin. After saying that, she left to rejoin her group. Turning his attention back to the spirit orb, Xiaonan decided it was time to search for areas with even higher concentrations of flame poison. After exploring for a while, the orb turned yellow, confirming that the path ahead was correct. Once he reached a cave, an intense wave of flame poison struck him head-on. The system immediately activated, converting the damage into experience points. As he ventured deeper, he noticed the orb shifting from yellow to a bright golden color, signaling that something far more dangerous lay ahead. Guided by the orb, Xiaonan carefully navigated through the cave until he arrived at a sealed treasure gate. When he opened it, the corpse of a deceased warrior collapsed to the ground before him. Xiaonan reacted in shock as the body hit the floor. Inside the room, he spotted a chest and concluded that the warrior must have died because of what was inside it. Regardless of the danger, he knew that whatever lay within would be extremely useful. The moment the chest was opened, a massive wave of fiery energy burst out and slammed directly into him. His body absorbed the violent energy at an astonishing speed as the system chimed repeatedly, awarding large amounts of experience. He realized that this overwhelming power was likely what had killed the warrior. Inside the chest rested a glowing red rock. As Xiaonan reached out to grab it, an even stronger wave of energy erupted. This surge pushed him past his limits, allowing him to break through to the fifth stage of spiritual energy. Filled with excitement, Xiao Nan viewed the strange rock as a priceless treasure. He believed that with it, training would no longer be a problem, his strength would skyrocket, and even marrying the saintess might become possible. Just as these thoughts formed, he suddenly coughed up blood. The pain coursing through his body was a harsh reminder that he was far from invincible. Despite the intense pain, Xiao Nan clenched his teeth and held onto the red rock. At that moment, the system activated and unlocked a new skill, Fire Poison Tyrant Body. A sense of awe filled his mind as he realized how overwhelming the benefits of the system truly were. However, his body soon sent a clear warning. His limits had been reached. Reluctantly, he placed the rock back into the chest where it belonged. Even so, the system still rewarded him with experience points. Xiao Nan noticed that the gains had dropped from double digits to single digits, which led him to an important realization. The newly acquired skill significantly reduced damage from flame-based attacks. If there had been no plans for the following day, he would have continued cultivating inside the realm. Knowing he had no choice, he left the hidden realm. The moment he stepped outside, he finally noticed the gourd hanging on his waist. At the same time, he spotted Molly nearby and asked what she was doing there. She answered cheerfully, saying she had been worried and waited for him. She then casually asked him to take off his clothes. Xiao Nan immediately misunderstood the situation. Seeing his reaction, Molly calmly explained that it was only a routine inspection to check whether he had been poisoned by the flames. With no room to refuse, Xiao Nan awkwardly removed his clothes, his face burning with embarrassment. Molly carefully examined his body and quickly realized how well-built and defined it was. She leaned in closer purely for inspection, while secretly plotting ways to make him her direct disciple. Xiao Nan noticed her gaze lingering for far too long, and the sudden change in his expression made Molly ask what was wrong. In response, Xiao Nan voiced his suspicion about her true identity. When she claimed to be his senior marshal's sister, he questioned why she had secretly attached her gourd to him and asked whether she had been spying on him. Molly denied the accusation, explaining that there had been no intention to spy. She revealed that the gourd contained a fragment of her soul. Curious, Xiao Nan touched the gourd and asked what its purpose was if it was not meant for surveillance. The moment he did so, Molly suddenly let out a sharp cry, her body reacting intensely. When Xiao Nan demanded an explanation, she brushed it off and said it was nothing, then asked him to hand the gourd back. For reasons even he did not fully understand, Xiao Nan refused. He touched the gourd once more, causing Molly to react the same way as before. This finally made her plead with him to stop touching it randomly. With a trace of her soul inside, she could feel every contact, making it extremely sensitive. When Xiao Nan asked for her true reason for approaching him, she put on a gentle and coaxing expression. She told him to come closer if he wanted to know the answer. Lowering his guard for just a moment proved to be a mistake. In an instant, Molly pinned him to the ground with her overwhelming strength, her ample chest pressing down on him. This time, it was Xiao Nan who begged for mercy. Molly thought to herself that if he were not the chosen one, he might have already been sent to the afterlife. With slight irritation, she warned him not to pretend that he disliked it, or she might really kill him. After that, she stood up and left, reminding him about his first class the following day. Watching her disappear, Xiao Nan could only comment on her terrifying strength. The scene then shifted to the Pride Hall, a training hall reserved for geniuses. Xiao Nan sat in the courtyard alongside his fellow disciples. An elder stepped forward and introduced himself as the instructor in charge of their monthly assessment. He briefly explained the path of cultivation and announced that the day's lesson would focus on the elemental counterplay of a warrior's spiritual energy. In the middle of the lecture, the elder suddenly noticed that Xiao Nan had fallen asleep. Seeing the elder's reaction, Xiao Nan hurriedly apologized. To him, the lesson felt like a complete waste of time, especially with the system handling most of his progress. This immediately drew ridicule. Quan Duo openly called him trash for falling asleep during such an important lesson, and other disciples joined in with mocking remarks. The elder's eyes widened with rage. He announced that he would personally teach Xiao Nan a lesson, declaring that the Pride Hall was not a place for slackers. The instructor flipped through an old book and quickly discovered that Xiao Nan was a wood-style elemental cultivator. A sinister smile appeared on his face as he announced that a fire-style elemental user would be the best counter against him. At once, the disciples began whispering among themselves. Although many were eager to see Xiao Nan embarrassed, no one dared to step forward. Everyone knew how strong he was. Just then, a massive man stepped out and loudly declared himself as Xiao Nan's opponent. Shock spread through the crowd, including Xiao Nan himself. The guy was known as Iron Hammer, a senior disciple whose strength far surpassed Xiao Nan's. Cold sweat formed on the instructor's back. Iron Hammer was clearly not an ideal opponent, especially for someone who had only recently entered the Pride Hall. However, because of Xiao Nan's earlier arrogance, the instructor decided to use him as an example. To ensure safety, the instructor announced that Iron Hammer's strength would be adjusted to match Xiao Nan's. He declared that both of them would be restricted to the 4th level of spiritual energy. Yet the moment he sensed Xiao Nan's aura, his eyes widened in surprise. Xiao Nan had already reached the 5th stage of spiritual energy in just a few days. The restriction spell was activated, and the instructor warned them to stop once the point was proven. A golden aura enveloped both fighters, signaling the start of the battle. Unintentionally, this restriction ended up enhancing Xiao Nan instead. Iron Hammer stepped forward confidently, flames surging around him. As he charged, he declared that he had no intention of holding back. The watching disciples began commenting among themselves, convinced that Xiao Nan stood no chance against Iron Hammer's fire attacks. However, the instructor immediately recognized Iron Hammer's move as a killing technique. He considered stepping in to stop the fight, but at that moment, a message arrived from one of the female masters, ordering him not to interfere. With no choice, everyone could only watch. Iron Hammer poured all his strength into a final strike, saying Xiao Nan losing to him should be considered an honor. The attack landed, causing a massive explosion as smoke filled the area. Confident of his victory, Iron Hammer advised Xiao Nan to focus more on cultivation rather than relying on luck. Before he could finish speaking, Xiao Nan interrupted him. Calmly, he commented on the so-called finishing blow. Then he mocked Iron Hammer, calling the punch pathetic and saying even a dog could do better. Silence fell over the arena. Disciples, and even the instructor stared in disbelief, as if Xiao Nan had grown a second head. Iron Hammer stood frozen, shocked and enraged. Xiao Nan wondered aloud whether the senior intended to continue standing around. Internally, he thanked the system. Iron Hammer finally demanded an explanation. In response, Xiao Nan released a bright green aura and declared it was time for a counterattack. In the next instant, he moved. Iron Hammer's eyes widened in fear as Xiao Nan vanished from sight. A split second later, a flurry of punches landed across Iron Hammer's body, ending with a powerful blow to the stomach that sent him flying. The disciples watched in stunned silence, their faces filled with disbelief. Xiao Nan stood tall and mocked Iron Hammer, stating that even without restrictions in place, the result was still the same. This boast shocked the instructor even more. Even with elemental advantage, Xiao Nan should not have been able to defeat Iron Hammer so decisively. Something about this situation felt completely wrong. Xiao Nan's hands were bruised, but he felt grateful for his newly awakened physique. Without it, the damage would have been far worse. Turning to the instructor, he casually suggested finding Iron Hammer a new teacher, remarking that the senior was surprisingly weak. With no choice, the instructor acknowledged Xiao Nan's victory. He advised the other disciples to learn from the example, though they should still remember the fundamentals of the lesson. After that, he announced the end of the lecture and informed them of their next destination. Far away, the female masters observed everything. Jinxiu commented on Xiao Nan's strange ability to absorb Iron Hammer's attack. Bingyun agreed, believing the power came from his unique constitution. Molly, however, pointed out Xiao Nan's lack of combat experience, though she admitted his potential was frightening. Because of this, all 4 female masters spoke at once about wanting him. Molly quickly reminded them that disciple recruitment had to remain fair and competitive. She did not realize that Bingyun already understood her intentions. Bingyun agreed, stating that unless Xiao Nan personally chose one of them as his master, the competition would continue. In addition, each of them was free to use their own methods to recruit him. The group soon arrived at their destination, the Sword Sex Sutra Pavilion. Before entering, the instructor explained the rules of the pavilion. First, all new disciples were only allowed access to the first floor. Second, each disciple could take only one manual at a time. Third, the manuals must not be damaged under any circumstances. In addition, the pavilion contained countless manuals, and the quality of what a disciple obtained depended entirely on luck. With the rules stated, the group entered the pavilion. The moment they stepped inside, amazement spread across their faces as they gazed at the massive structure filled with shelves upon shelves of ancient manuals. Quan Duo immediately dashed forward in excitement, determined to find a powerful technique. Unlike him, Mei-yong calmly explained that he had heard the first and second floors alone contained over 13,000 manuals, with each grade becoming rarer than the last. He was confident that he would definitely find something exceptional. Xiaonan casually asked whether this explanation was meant as bragging. Soon after, Xiaonan explored the pavilion on his own. Looking at the enormous collection, he finally understood why the instructor said luck played such an important role. With so many manuals, finding a suitable one was no easy task. The moment he picked up a book, he felt an intense gaze on him. Turning around, he discovered it was Wu Yan. He found it strange that she was on the first floor of the pavilion. For a brief moment, he considered asking for guidance, but her aura seemed to scream danger, urging avoidance. Suddenly, Wu Yan locked eyes with him and demanded to know why he was staring. Xiaonan calmly remarked on the coincidence of running into her again. She replied that she already knew and stepped closer, asking whether he was browsing technique manuals. Holding one in his hands, Xiaonan admitted that he was struggling to find something suitable. At that moment, Wu Yan thought to herself that timing truly mattered. All that was left was to recommend her own sword technique without making it too obvious. She reached out and grabbed the manual he was holding, assuming it was his choice. Xiaonan immediately grew anxious. The title of the book was unusually eye-catching, describing methods to make a cold master fall in love. This caused Wu Yan to misunderstand, thinking Xiaonan had somehow discovered her identity. However, the thought that he might be interested in her made her face flush like a young girl. Because of this strange interaction, the system suddenly deducted experience points from Xiaonan, leaving him confused about what was wrong with her. Before he could say anything, Wu Yan handed him another manual. She revealed that she had witnessed his battle with Iron Hammer and admitted that he looked impressive. She confidently stated that the technique she was offering would suit him perfectly. Xiaonan looked at the name of the book and opened it. Instantly, the contents flowed into his mind. Even he was shocked by his level of comprehension. The manual was a sword codex, and it was undeniably powerful. With just a brief glance, he grasped the concept of the first form. He turned to thank her, but she had already disappeared. Before leaving, she sent a message, insisting that no one must learn about this technique. She had already placed an illusion on the manual to prevent suspicion. Because of this, the manual's name changed from Sword Codex to Dafeng Sword Art. Xiaonan silently expressed his gratitude. He was certain the manual was far from ordinary and believed it was at least Earth grade or higher. He also realized that Wu Yan herself was anything but ordinary. A strange thought crossed his mind, wondering whether he possessed some hidden ability that attracted women. Later, he arrived at the center of the pavilion, where disciples and the instructor were gathered around Mei-yong. Praise filled the air as Mei-yong revealed that he had obtained an Earth grade manual. He accepted the attention modestly, saying that although it was Earth grade, it was only low tier. Even so, the instructor was clearly impressed. He explained that it had been a long time since a disciple had obtained an Earth grade manual, and from the name alone, the technique inside was sure to be powerful. Turning around, the instructor noticed Xiaonan and saw that he had already chosen a manual. Curious, he asked to take a look. Xiaonan quietly hoped the illusion would hold, as failure would surely bring trouble. After examining the manual, the instructor commented that it was below Earth grade and only mid-tier. His next remark, however, completely caught Xiaonan off guard. Because Xiaonan had obtained the lowest grade technique manual, the other disciples immediately began mocking him and making fun of his choice. In response, Xiaonan calmly stated that cultivation was not about the quality of technique, but about the path one chose to walk. As he spoke, he earned points from the system, while inwardly thinking that everyone around him was a fool. The old instructor was deeply moved by his words. He praised Xiaonan, saying that such a mindset truly reflected the spirit of the sword sect. Holding the manual in his hand, the instructor expressed confidence, even while being fully aware of Xiaonan's limitations in talent and comprehension. Xiaonan accepted the strange compliment, and, at the same time, felt a sense of relief that the true nature of the manual had not been discovered. Later that night, while studying, Xiaonan discovered something important. Each sword technique required a certain level of cultivation. With his current strength, he could only properly master the first sword form. Even so, he was not disappointed. As he looked at his system stats, confidence filled him. With the system's help, growing stronger and mastering all 7 sword forms was only a matter of time. With this thought in mind, he lay down lazily, and the system immediately began assisting with the comprehension of the first sword form of the Sword Codex. Elsewhere, Bingyan finally found time to observe Xiaonan properly. She noticed that he was in the middle of training, but something about his movements felt strange. As she watched more closely, she recognized the form he was using and realized he was practicing the sword codex. A smile appeared on her face as everything suddenly made sense. She concluded that this must be the work of the second elder, who was clearly trying to win Xiao Nin over. With that realization, she began forming her own plans, while Xiao Nin continued monitoring his progress through the system. Soon, Xiao Nin realized that he had successfully learned the first form of the sword codex. However, the problem remained his physical limitations. To push himself further, he decided to return to the hidden realm. Not long after, he arrived at the realm and noted the lack of people around. What he did not know was that Bingyun had been searching for him the entire time. She had initially planned to visit him, but upon seeing him quietly slip away, she followed him instead. Now, she wondered what he was doing in such a dangerous place. Moments after Xiao Nin entered the realm, a group of warriors appeared. Bingyun recognized them as disciples of the sect. At that moment, their leader revealed their identity. They were from the Tai clan, and he had come to avenge the humiliation of his brother, Iron Hammer, also known as Tai Xiong. Bingyun finally recognized the leader as Tai Jun. He was already at the spirit condensation realm. A sense of worry crept in as she wondered how Xiao Nin could possibly deal with such an opponent. Inside the realm, Xiao Nin considered using the fire orb to pursue the strange treasure first. However, he decided against it. He could not yet fully handle its power, and strengthening himself too early might reduce how much damage and experience he could absorb later. Just then, he sensed a group approaching. Xiao Nin quickly concealed himself, using the terrain to his advantage. Meanwhile, Tai Jun and his followers entered the area. Affected by the flame poison, the followers told Tai Jun that they could not continue. Tai Jun ordered them to stay behind and activated a movement skill that formed wings of energy behind him. When Tai Jun could no longer sense Xiao Nan's aura, he frowned, wondering where his target was hiding. In the next instant, Xiao Nan appeared behind him in a flash. Tai Jun narrowly dodged the first strike. The two clashed briefly before separating. When Xiao Nan asked whether he was Iron Hammer's brother, Tai Jun released his full aura and declared that Xiao Nan would face the consequences of his actions. Activating a technique called Iron Eagle Claw, Tai Jun lunged forward. Xiao Nan blocked the attack, instantly realizing the terrifying truth. Tai Jun was in the spirit condensation realm, 2 full realms above him. Tai Jun sneered and mocked him, asking whether he regretted his earlier arrogance. A violent blow sent Xiao Nan crashing into a wall. The impact created a crater, and the damage was quickly converted into experience points by the system. For the first time, fear appeared on Xiao Nan's face. The gap in cultivation was too great. He knew he was no match for Tai Jun and felt a deep sense of regret for not eliminating him when the chance had existed. Tai Jun coldly declared that Xiao Nan would be made to experience every bit of pain his brother had suffered before being killed. Xiao Nan, however, quickly regained his composure. He could see that Tai Jun was blinded by rage, and that was a good thing. To Xiao Nan, this meant only one thing: an opportunity to farm experience points. Tai Jun attacked again, a cruel grin spreading across his face with every strike. Xiao Nan endured each blow with the same calm reaction, refusing to scream or retreat. This only fueled Tai Jun's anger. Xiao Nan even gestured provocatively, signaling him to use everything he had. Completely enraged, Tai Jun lunged forward again. Xiao Nan tanked every hit, while the system continuously displayed notifications of experience gained. Tai Jun unleashed one technique after another, but Xiao Nan remained standing. During the relentless assault, the system suddenly notified him that his bones had broken through to the 8th grade. The beating continued until Tai Jun finally began to tire. At that moment, his followers arrived and froze in shock when they saw that Xiao Nan was still alive. Xiao Nan mocked them openly, calling them weak and ridiculing Tai Jun's attacks as pathetic. Tai Jun could not comprehend how his opponent had endured everything. One of his followers quickly suggested using a spell formation to weaken Xiao Nan. Acting on the idea, a talisman was thrown toward him. A blue aura surrounded Xiao Nan, forming a restrictive formation. However, due to the system's influence, the formation reversed its effect. Instead of suppressing him, all his attributes were boosted by 100 to 200%. Unaware of what had truly happened, Tai Jun taunted Xiao Nan, asking whether fear had finally set in now that he was about to be beaten to death. Xiao Nan accepted the challenge without hesitation. Thanks to the system, his body felt fully recharged, like a battery restored to full power. With his strength and stamina completely recovered, Xiaonan realized this was the perfect moment to test the Sword Codex technique given by Wuyan. As his aura surged violently, Taizhun sensed the sudden shift and instinctively tried to flee. Xiaonan activated the first form and delivered a single slash. The sword style exceeded the user's aura, manifesting as a long-range attack. Taizhun realized the danger too late. He failed to dodge in time and was sliced cleanly in half, as easily as cutting through butter. Witnessing this, Taizhun's followers immediately fled for their lives. The moment the battle ended, Xiaonan was overwhelmed by the strain. He dropped to his knees. Never had he imagined that performing just the first move would drain all his strength and stamina so completely. As fear crept in and he wondered whether he would die inside the hidden realm, Bingyun appeared and caught him just as he lost consciousness. The master observed the scene in silence, admitting that it was surprising he had managed to learn the Sword Codex at all. She also felt fortunate that she had followed him. Recognizing his terrifying potential, she decided to offer him guidance in her own Star Fire spiritual refinement technique. Sometime later, Xiaonan opened his eyes and found himself back in his room. Seeing Bingyun beside him, he asked whether she had saved him. She nodded, saying it was simply good timing that she had been passing by. Xiaonan sincerely thanked her. Leaning over him, she changed the subject and asked what he had been doing in the secret realm. He responded with a vague excuse. Noticing how guarded he was, she shifted topics again and asked whether he would like to learn a far superior technique. Bingyun was stunned when Xiaonan rejected the offer. With a serious expression, he said that nothing in this world was free and asked what she truly wanted from him. Xiaonan's words made Bingyun slightly annoyed. Noticing her expression, Xiaonan quickly tried to do some damage control. He said that he truly appreciated her help and added that one could not chew too much at once. Instead of calming her down, this only made things worse. Bingyun reached out and grabbed him by the ear, expressing her mild annoyance more clearly. When Xiaonan tried to joke his way out and make excuses, she tightened her grip. Left with no choice, he apologized and admitted his fault. Satisfied, Bingyun tossed a manual directly onto his face and instructed him to come to Hongshun Peak every night to practice with her. Xiaonan picked up the manual and noticed that it was related to cultivation. Because of this, he wanted to refuse. He knew very well that his curse could reverse the effects of cultivation techniques. Bingyun then explained the benefits of the technique, saying his cultivation could skyrocket within a month. Xiaonan still refused, claiming he did not have enough time to handle both meetings and training. The two of them began negotiating back and forth. Bingyun suddenly exploded in anger, warning him not to argue with her. In the end, a compromise was reached. They agreed that training would begin 5 days later. Bingyun believed that Xiaonan was simply buying time to focus on learning the Sword Codex. Her thoughts were interrupted when a paper crane appeared. From it, she learned about an urgent meeting. She left immediately, reminding Xiaonan not to forget their training in 5 days at Hongshun Peak. Holding the invitation token in his hand, Xiaonan reflected on how fortunate he had become. He believed that as long as he continued improving and growing stronger, he would be able to handle whatever problems came his way. After studying Bingyun's manual for a while, he discovered that the first form of the technique depended on a warrior's spiritual root. As he prepared to practice, something strange and unexpected happened. His consciousness was pulled into a different space. There, he saw a woman holding a sword radiating a red aura. The strange woman gathered energy into the blade and performed a series of sword slashes. The sword aura flew straight toward him. To his shock, the aura converged into his forehead. At that moment, the system notified him that he had begun comprehending the first form of spark chi refinement. Back in reality, Xiaonan wondered about the strange state he had entered. When he checked his stats, he realized that spark chi refinement was the same grade as the Sword Codex. The difference was clear. The Sword Codex required a strong physical body, while spark chi refinement relied on spiritual roots. A wide grin spread across his face. Although he still did not know Bingyun's true identity, he felt grateful for benefiting so much from her. Elsewhere, the 4 female masters and elders gathered for a secret sect meeting. The topic was the upcoming spring examination. The holy sect had suddenly requested a conference. The spring examination was a combined trial involving the sword sect and 4 other sections. New recruits would enter a secret realm to compete for rewards. Although it was called an examination, it was more like a fierce competition. When Wei Yan demanded to know the reason behind the sudden notice, Xiaonan's instructor explained the situation. A newly discovered secret realm had appeared outside the influence of the 4 major sections. Because of this, They planned to form a joint force. Moli politely interrupted, saying that cooperation with other sects was not an issue for the Sword Sect. Jinxiu added that if that were the case, they should carefully select the disciples who would represent them. The instructor came prepared. He presented a list of 8 hand-picked candidates and believed their lineup would shock the other sections. When asked who would lead the Holy Sect's disciples, the elder revealed the name Nailingguer. Hearing this, Bingyun repeated the name with interest. The elder asked whether there was a problem. Bingyun replied that there was no issue, but she suggested holding an internal martial contest to re-evaluate and decide the representatives. Her true intention was to involve Xiaonan. It was also revealed that Nailingguer was Xiaonan's former fiancée, the woman who had abandoned him. This revelation caused concern. Bingyun wondered how Xiaonan would handle facing her again. The scene shifted to the next day. Xiaonan noticed many fellow disciples heading toward the Pride Hall. Curious, he stopped one of them and asked what was happening. The disciple replied that the instructor had suddenly called for an urgent gathering. Moments later, everyone arrived at the Pride Hall. The instructor raised his hand and ordered silence. He then informed the disciples about the newly discovered realm and the upcoming spring examination, as well as the sect competition tied to it. These were things most of them had already heard. During the briefing, Xiaonan quietly asked a nearby disciple about the true purpose of the spring examination. After hearing the explanation, he understood that the competition was more of a display. It was meant to show the strength of each sect, warn others who not to provoke, and assess their current standing. His insight impressed the senior brother beside him. The instructor continued, explaining that the sect contest would decide who represented the Sword Sect in the spring examination. Participation would bring honor to the sect and recognition to the disciples chosen. Xiaonan then asked whether the newly discovered realm was more dangerous than the sect's hidden realm. The old instructor replied that the new realm, known as the Red Wind Purgatory, was far more dangerous. However, it was also filled with great treasures and rare opportunities. Hearing this, several disciples began to hesitate. No one wanted to risk their life when the sect already had talented disciples who could be sent safely. The instructor was about to continue speaking when Xiaonan suddenly interrupted and said he wished to participate. In his mind, Xiaonan knew this was an opportunity he could not miss. It was the fastest way to grow stronger. The instructor was about to scold him for interrupting and for his low cultivation, but his expression changed when he sensed Xiaonan's aura. To his surprise, Xiaonan had already reached the 6th level of spiritual energy. Xiaonan calmly asked whether he was still unqualified to participate. The instructor shook his head and said it was not about qualification. Sending Xiaonan would be like sending a promising talent to an early grave. Hearing this, many disciples distanced themselves from Xiaonan and began mocking him. Although Xiaonan felt irritated, the system rewarded him with points. This made him feel strangely satisfied. He then asked loudly whether he should withdraw just because of his cultivation level. He mocked the others for being cowards and questioned what kind of future the Sword Sect would have if everyone thought the same way. His words were meant to provoke the crowd. To his surprise, the elder suddenly applauded. He praised Xiaonan, saying that such spirit truly represented the Sword Sect. Soon, other disciples joined in, moved by his speech. The atmosphere shifted completely. At that moment, Xiaonan felt a sense of horror. Something was clearly going wrong. From the crowd, someone questioned him, reminding him of his low cultivation and asking whether he truly believed he was qualified for the spring examination. Xiaonan calmly asked who the blonde disciple was. The man stepped forward and introduced himself as Ling Xiu. He explained that he was one step away from the spirit condensation realm. All current candidates for the spring examination were already at that realm. If Xiaonan wished to join, he would have to defeat him first. Ling Xiu accepted the challenge without hesitation and warned Xiaonan about his powerful techniques. With that, both of them began looking forward to the sect contest that would decide the 8th representative for the spring examination. Far away, within the Holy Sect, disciples were engaged in duels inside a grand arena. Elders and disciples watched closely from above. One female elder muttered Xiaonan's name with deep concern. In her mind, terrifying images surfaced. She imagined Xiaonan returning one day to destroy the entire Holy Sect because of the humiliation he had suffered. She had never imagined that the discarded boy would become a sword immortal who would wipe out their sect in the future. Her thoughts were interrupted when the winner of the duel was announced. Nailingguer stood victorious. She stepped forward and thanked her master for teaching her a heavenly technique, which allowed her to defeat a senior disciple several realms above her. However, the elder did not respond. Her mind was still filled with worry and unease. Nalingwer called out to her master again. This time, the elder asked whether she would be willing to become engaged to Xiao Nan once more. Nalingwer was shocked. The very mention of Xiao Nan, whom she viewed as trash, filled her with disbelief. Ignoring her reaction, the elder believed this was the only way to save the holy sect. Reuniting them was the safest path. Nalingwer angrily rejected the idea, declaring that she wanted nothing to do with the so-called loser. The elder tried to reason with her from a moral standpoint, but Nalingwer coldly asked whether her master was only trying to push this marriage out of fear of the sword sect. That question enraged the elder. Her aura erupted as she demanded to know whether Nalingwer had forgotten her place. Shaken, Nalingwer immediately apologized and admitted her mistake. In her heart, however, hatred burned fiercely. She silently swore that if she ever got the chance, she would kill Xiao Nan herself. The scene shifts back to the sword sect. Our boy believes he can defeat Ling Xiao. After all, he had already killed Tai Jun, who was at the spiritual condensation realm. However, when he checks his system, he decides it would be wiser to remain fully prepared. At that moment, he finally remembers Jin Xiao after quite some time. With this in mind, he decides to seek her out for some pills. Elsewhere, Jin Xiao is already thinking about him. The fact that both of her elder martial sisters are getting close to Xiao Nan makes her feel jealous and irritated. Lost in her thoughts, she is suddenly startled when Xiao Nan arrives. When she realizes it is him, she immediately relaxes and expresses her relief at seeing him. Her reaction catches Xiao Nan off guard. Feeling slightly embarrassed, he suggests that they keep some distance to avoid causing misunderstandings among others. In response, Jin Xiao reveals that she has prepared something for him. She pulls out a manual and asks whether he wants something more specific, explaining that she is aware of his upcoming duel and his plan to participate in the spring examination. Xiao Nan accepts the manual. As he flips through it, he thinks to himself that now more than ever, he must take advantage of every opportunity without hesitation. After noticing his reaction, Jin Xiao silently reflects that this is precisely why people can never resist alchemists. Just then, Xiao Nan asks about the explosive pill mentioned in the manual, noting that it seems extremely powerful. Jin Xiao explains that the explosive fire pill is essentially a combination of fire and a lethal poison. It is mostly used for ambushing enemies. Suspicious, she asks why he is interested in such a pill, wondering if he plans to use it during the spring examination, which could result in serious punishment. In response, Xiao Nan explains that he needs it to explore a hidden realm. Naturally, he cannot tell her that his true purpose is to accelerate his cultivation. After some thought, Jin Xiao tells him to come to Dan Peak in 3 days. However, Xiao Nan reveals that he already has other plans. This immediately makes Jin Xiao suspicious again. She asks if he intends to visit another sister. He quickly denies it. Despite his response, she pouts, clearly unconvinced. In her mind, the most likely explanation is that he plans to visit her elder martial sisters again. In the end, she gives him an ultimatum. If he does not come to Dan Peak, she will not guide him in alchemy, and he will not receive the manual either. Left with no other choice, Xiao Nan agrees. What a sad life. Soon, the day of Xiao Nan's duel with Ling Xiao finally arrives. The instructor acts as the referee, and of course, all the female masters are present. Around the arena, disciples gather to discuss and predict Xiao Nan's inevitable defeat. Meanwhile, Ling Xiao stands proudly at the center of the arena, radiating confidence. He mocks Xiao Nan, suggesting that he should back out while he still can. Instead, Xiao Nan makes a dramatic entrance, deliberately farming aura. Ling Xiao expresses his surprise that Xiao Nan actually showed up. Then, he unleashes his aura, cracking the ground beneath his feet. This display of power immediately draws the attention of the surrounding disciples, who exclaim in shock, noting that Ling Xiao has mastered a high-tier technique. Xiao Nan merely scoffs, mocking the display and calling Ling Xiao a dog. Enraged, Ling Xiao launches an attack. Xiao Nan responds with a sword arc, and the two clash head-on. Due to the difference in their realms, Xiao Nan suffers damage. However, his system immediately rewards him with experience points. While attacking relentlessly, Ling Xiao shouts, demanding to know what right Xiao Nan has to participate in the spring examination. Xiao Nan replies with a sharp jab, pointing out that Ling Xiao talks far too much. He then switches his aura, activating the Wuyin sword technique, and openly taunts Ling Xiao. At this point, Ling Xiao begins to waver, shaken by Xiao Nan's overwhelming killing intent and fierce sword energy. Xiao Nan's aura surges past Ling Qiu, causing Ling Qiu's expression to change as confusion fills his eyes. He cannot comprehend how such a thing is even possible. Seeing his reaction, Xiao Nan mocks him openly, calling him weak. Ling Qiu, now visibly anxious, hurriedly reminds Xiao Nan of the difference in their cultivation levels. In response, Xiao Nan scoffs and tells him that with such an attitude, he will never get a girlfriend. Naturally, the junior martial sisters immediately agree. Only then do the surrounding disciples realize that Ling Qiu has always been so talkative, something they never noticed until Xiao Nan pointed it out. With his ego bruised and his pride shattered, Ling Qiu finally unleashes his full power, activating the Golden Pong creation. Golden light erupts from his body as he coldly declares that Xiao Nan should not blame him for what happens next. Xiao Nan merely smiles and welcomes the challenge without hesitation. At this moment, Wu Yin suddenly decides to leave. Bing Yin asks her why, wondering if she has grown bored. Wu Yin calmly replies that the outcome of the match has already been decided. At the same time, she thinks to herself in shock. Xiao Nan has already mastered her first sword technique in just a few days. Bing Yun, as if reading her thoughts, remains completely unsurprised. Ling Qiu leaps into the air, his body wrapped in a blazing golden aura that takes the shape of a massive bird. He launches a barrage of attacks from above. Xiao Nan watches the assault with a faint smile. In a blur, he moves through the battlefield, effortlessly dodging all of Ling Qiu's projectiles. However, during the exchange, he still sustains several injuries. Deciding to end things immediately, Xiao Nan begins preparing the Sword Codex technique. The intensity of his sword aura explodes outward, astonishing every disciple present. Using the first form of the Sword Codex, Xiao Nan blocks all of Ling Qiu's attacks with overwhelming force. The instructor watches with a conflicted expression, both confused and deeply shocked. Molly also looks stunned, instantly recognizing the sword technique as one belonging to Wu Yin. Meanwhile, Bing Yun's expression remains calm and unreadable. In the next instant, Xiao Nan suddenly disappears. A heartbeat later, he reappears behind Ling Qiu in midair and strikes him with the hilt of his sword. Ling Qiu's unconscious body plummets to the ground, creating a massive crater upon impact. The watching disciples gasp, convinced that Xiao Nan has killed him. Calmly, Xiao Nan explains that he merely knocked Ling Qiu out. This overwhelming defeat causes the disciples to question everything they thought they knew about cultivation. Without delay, Xiao Nan announces himself as the 8th representative of the sword sect. He openly challenges anyone who wishes to contest the position. After brief discussion, the disciples unanimously conclude that it would be a terrible idea to challenge someone who just defeated Ling Qiu, an opponent several realms higher. Among the elders, discussions quietly erupt. Xiao Nan's instructor is more concerned about how he managed to learn such a powerful technique, while the others conclude that Xiao Nan is simply a child with terrifying potential. As a result, Xiao Nan is officially announced as a representative for the spring examination. Turning inward, Xiao Nan consults his system and realizes he needs to level up further. This thought reminds him of his upcoming date with Jin Xiu. The scene shifts to Dan Peak. Xiao Nan arrives and calls out to Jin Xiu, but she is nowhere to be seen. The only thing present is an alchemy furnace quietly radiating heat. Suddenly, Jin Xiu appears behind him, startling him in the process. When Xiao Nan asks where she has been, she smiles and tells him that she has something for him. She reveals that she is almost finished refining his explosive fire pill. While waiting, she suggests teaching him a thing or two about alchemy. She begins explaining the basic concepts and requirements of alchemy in detail. However, halfway through her lecture, Xiao Nan is completely lost. He stands there grinning foolishly, no longer listening and simply enjoying the sight before him. Jin Xiu notices his strange reaction. Unexpectedly, she complains about the heat from the furnace and casually asks Xiao Nan to help her take off her clothes.